Hi everyone, my name's Anne-Marie. Welcome to this Christmas card making project using lots of Spellbinder goodies. In this episode we're going to make a stamped Christmas card rather than one using lots of coloured paper, because I want to show you how versatile some stamps can be. I'm going to show you the items that we're going to use from Spellbinders. On my blog there is a full description of all the items that I use, including the cardstock, etc. Against the Spellbinders there's always going to be the links that will take you to the Spellbinders website so you can get more information, or if you want to purchase the product you can do. And that doesn't matter whether you're in this country or you're across the pond. And as far as I know, I'm sure Spellbinders ship worldwide. I know they ship to the UK. But just double check for which country you're in as to where they ship. So the items that we're going to use is, I don't know the title of this one, but it's something like festive greenery with the pine cones and the wreath and the word stamps. Now, these are the stamps that we're going to use, are the word stamps from this selection. I really do like the words on this, and I think they match really well with this project. The next item that we're going to use, and this is the item that I think is really versatile, and it's the Poinsettia stamp. It's a 3D shaded stamp, and it basically does the work for you. And we're going to use it in two different ways. So that's the Poinsettia stamp. And then we're also going to use some of my favourite labels, Labels 20. I just think they work so well with so many projects. They don't have to be used for Christmas, they can be used throughout the year. And the shape of them is just perfect to make your sentiments come alive. So those are the Spellbinders items that we're going to use. And as I run through everything, I'll tell you the names of the items if I can remember, brain permitting. So the first thing that we've got is our base card, and this is a 5 3/4 inch size card. It should be 6 inches, but this is my quibble. A card should be 6 inches if it says 6 inches. And now we'll just have a quick look at it on our cardometer, just to show you what I mean. So a cardometer is something that I've created to give you perspective at home of what size card that we're using. So this is a manufacturer's size 6 inches square. And as you can see, it just falls a little bit short. And I think they say it's 6 inches because that's the size of the envelopes. But that's just so that you get perspective at home of what size card that I'm using. And it's just general cardstock that I've purchased from that good old auction site online. So that's our base card. Now we're going to do the inside first, and this is where I think the stamp comes into its own, because not only can you stamp directly and cut out the images and use the poinsettia as focal points, but I've stamped around a piece of card that I've cut to size for the inside of our project, and I've literally stamped just along the edges using the tip of the stamp and just higgledy-piggledy, not in any method, just stamping and getting the pattern on the edge. So it's stamping over the edge in theory, and you're just getting the tip of the leaves and the flower. And that's all I've done. And then I die cut one of our label dies just into the actual insert panel, so that gives us an aperture that we can fill with our sentiment. So I've got double-sided tape on the back of it, and you'll notice I've got tape around the aperture as well as the edges of the panel, and that will just hold it in place, and it'll stop this bit puffing out really, so it'll keep it nice and flat around it. So I'm just adding that into the insert of our card. Now I've got to say, out of so many of the techniques that I do and inserts that I do, I think this technique of stamping around the edge of something, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat, stamping around the edge of a panel just makes it look so pretty. You don't have to be an advanced stamper to do it. It might be the first thing that you do. Just stamp on some scrap paper first, make sure your stamp is giving the full image, and then stamp on a panel, and it just looks so good. And I really like that technique. So the next thing I've done is, using our Labels 20, I've cut the aperture into our panel, and then I've stamped using Peace, Love and Joy stamps from our Festive Greenery collection, and then I've just inked around the edge a little bit with the Ranger Gathered Twigs ink, just to give it a little bit of colour, so that when we slip that in to the aperture, like so, it stands out nice and well. And that is our insert. There's enough room for you to and from, and a little message and everything, and that is just so pretty. Even prettier now it's all together than I first imagined. Okay, so now let's do the outside of our card, and this is going to be really pretty as well. So the first thing I've done is I've cut a square in white card that is the first layer for our card. I've used the Creative Expressions snow glitter for the edge, and you can see, I'm going to point this out just so everybody knows that I'm human. My inky fingers from doing the insert, when I added the adhesive for the glitter, it's taken the ink from my fingers where I've pushed the tape down, and it's taken the ink. It doesn't matter because that's going to be covered up. If it hadn't been covered up, I would have had to have done it again, because you can just see it. But I wanted to point it out that it might be a good idea, if you're inking and then you go on to use your tape and adhesive for snow and glitter, if you're using something that's iridescent, it may be a good point to wash your hands. So I'm going to have to take that tip and use it. So for the actual base panel, I just added double-sided tape around the edge, and then covered it with the snow glitter, and then I took a piece of gold ribbon and I've added it, wrapped it round the edge of the card through the centre, and then I've got double-sided tape on the back of this panel, and we can add it as our first layer. So there it goes onto our card, like so. Trying to get it in the centre. So that's nice and shimmery. I hope it's catching the light on the camera, because it is really twinkly. So next I've used our Poinsettia stamp. Now this is in full stamping mode. I stamped across a sheet of A4 and I just stamped it randomly to create a pattern. I used Stays On ink in Timber, and so it's brown. I've not used any watercolours, I've not used anything else, and you can see how it's got all the shading, and that's why it's the 3D stamp, because it does the work for you. And it's just so, I just really love this stamp. So I've stamped it randomly, and I've literally got double-sided 3D foam on the back of it, and I'm simply going to add this over the top of our previous layer on the card, like that. So I can press it down, and now you can just see the snow around the edge, and it just gives you a hint of glitter. So pretty. Next I've used our Labels 20, and I've used some Centura pearl card in gold, and so you can see it's pearl rather than mirror. I've cut it out and I've embossed it as well to get the fancy edge. I've got it on 3D foam, and I'm just going to position it to one side of our card front, like that. Next I've done exactly the same as I did for the insert, just not as much ink around the edge, but I've used the same Peace, Love and Joy stamp, and I've added 3D foam on the back, and I'm simply going to pop that through the centre of the previous label layer. So this again was from Labels 20, and I'm going to then finish it off with a little gold bow at the top, and I can press that down. There we go, help it stick, and that is our card finished. A nice simple card, hand stamped using your rubber stamps, using the 3D Poinsettia. The technique would work with so many other stamps that you've probably got in your stash, and you don't have to use the Labels 20. You've maybe got other layering dies that you could use. It stands up nicely. There's a couple of layers with your 3D foam, however that would still go in a normal envelope. It wouldn't need anything special. It would definitely go on somebody's mantelpiece. Such a pretty card, and it's just, you know, a great way of saying Happy Christmas. So please check my blog, because there's so many other projects on there. There's something for everybody. If you've got anything to say, please feel free to comment. If you want to reply to your comments, you can always comment on my blog or on Facebook. I can't reply on YouTube though, but I do love reading all your comments, and I really do appreciate them. So I'd just like to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.